The port of Catania echoed with tension and resolve as the Freedom Flotilla Coalition prepared to make another attempt to break through the blockade and reach Gaza. Their mission, driven by principle and compassion, carried the weight of a failed effort just weeks earlier, a drone attack that crippled one of their vessels, the Conscience, in the Mediterranean. But the resolve of the group was unshaken. This time, aboard the vessel Madleen, the coalition was joined by familiar and unexpected faces. Greta Thunberg, known around the world for her climate activism, stepped onto the deck not with banners about carbon emissions, but with the burden of humanity's conscience on her shoulders. Alongside her, Irish actor Liam Cunningham, best known for his role in global television, took a quiet but determined stance with the volunteers. Their cargo was not vast. No containers of food rations or crates of medical supplies stacked high. What they carried was a symbolic payload, barrels of essentials, yes, but far more significant was the statement they made. This was not just about aid. It was about visibility. It was about refusing to look away. The previous attempt to reach Gaza had ended in violence. 2 drones, launched without warning, struck the Conscience outside Maltese territorial waters. The FFC squarely pointed the finger at Israel for the attack, and while the Israeli government has remained silent, the implications were clear. Someone wanted these ships stopped. But threats, attacks, intimidation, none of it could mute the voices on board. Thunberg addressed the press before departure, her words cutting through the salty sea air like a blade. No matter what odds we are against, she said, we have to keep trying. This wasn't just a mission, it was a moral imperative. She didn't flinch when asked about the danger. This mission is dangerous, yes, she admitted, but it is nowhere near as dangerous as the silence of the entire world in the face of the lives being genocided. There was no room for diplomatic polish in her words. She said what many feared to say. She accused the world, not just governments, but people, of silence. Cunningham stood nearby, his expression hardened by a mix of anger and resolve. For him, the mission wasn't political. It was human. I'm here because people are suffering, he said. And when you see suffering, you act. Or you accept that you're part of the problem. The Madleen, painted in white and blue, rocked slightly in the dock as supplies were secured below deck. There were volunteers from Sweden, Ireland, Italy, Spain, Canada, and South Africa. A makeshift crew, bound together by a cause larger than any one of them. Organizers acknowledged the risk. Another drone strike, an interception at sea, or even an arrest, all were possible. But they said they had already faced the worst, the world's indifference. And now they moved forward with purpose, not because they thought they could change everything, but because they believed doing nothing was no longer an option. Media swarmed the pier, but there was no spectacle in the volunteers' faces. No performance. Just the gravity of those who understand what they are stepping into. The symbolism of Greta Thunberg, often framed as the voice of a generation, joining a flotilla to Gaza, was not lost on anyone. She had often spoken of interconnection, the way climate justice and human rights were 2 sides of the same coin. Now, she embodied that message with each footstep on the deck of the Madleen. Catania's port had seen many ships leave. But this one left under a cloud of hope and tension, a mission unarmed yet powerful. The Freedom Flotilla Coalition has been operating since 2010, when their first major effort, the Mavi Marmara, was raided by Israeli commandos in a deadly confrontation that left 10 activists dead. Since then, their attempts to deliver aid by sea have been interrupted, blocked, or violently disrupted. But never abandoned. This voyage, like those before it, wasn't expected to break the siege with sheer force or resources. Its power lay in visibility, in moral pressure, in forcing a conversation. The mission had its critics. Some accused the group of provocation. Others argued that real change comes through diplomacy, not symbolism. But those on board rejected that view. Symbolism matters, one volunteer said. When people are being killed and starved, showing up, even with empty hands, means something. Security at the port had been tight, but no attempt was made to stop the departure. Some speculated that after the drone attack, authorities didn't want more international scrutiny. Others believed the ship would never make it past international waters. The Madleen sailed nonetheless. Somewhere out there, unseen but expected, were eyes watching it. Whether drones or satellites or other vessels, someone would be waiting. The volunteers knew that. They had prepared letters to families, distributed emergency contacts, and ran through worst-case scenarios. But fear did not outweigh duty. This was not a rescue mission. It was not a military operation. It was a statement, a floating declaration that people were willing to stand between power and pain, even if it cost them dearly. Greta stood at the bow as the sun dipped lower on the horizon, her hair swept by the Mediterranean wind. She wasn't tweeting. She wasn't live streaming. She was simply present. One of the crew members stood beside her. "We may not reach Gaza," he said. "But we've already reached the conscience of the world." The Madleen pushed forward, inch by inch, mile by mile. And behind it, on the pier, the crowd slowly dispersed. But the impact of that moment did not fade. The ship carried not just barrels, but messages, memory, and defiance. Every wave it crossed was a challenge. Every mile it sailed was resistance. And every heart that watched it disappear beyond the horizon was reminded of what it means to care in a time when caring has become political. This wasn't just a flotilla.